just going to each present just an example case and then have a discussion and take your questions. So my case will be first since I'm already standing up here. And so this is a 5-year-old girl who had moderate amblyopia. She had a accommodative VT, which was well controlled in her glasses. She was +3.25 and +4. She had not had prior amblyopia treatment. And I discussed options of patching, drops, or Luminopia with them, and they decided they wanted to try Luminopia. And so I prescribed it in an hour per day, 6 days a week. And when you say the prescription, the only real important detail you give is which eye is the amblyopic eye, because that obviously changes the way that the reduced contrast and the masking is done. And so this is what transpired in follow-up. So she started off at 20/50 in the amblyopic left eye and 20/25 in the right. The vision basically stayed about the same in the right, although improved a little bit at the end there. At 3 months, the amblyopic eye had improved from 20/50 to 20/40 +2. There was a little bit of a gap. Oh, I should just orient you. So the graph on the bottom for all of our cases is the report that you can see their compliance on. And the y-axis is basically telling you how many of the minutes of the target 60 minutes they actually did. So you can see that that's what this red line is here. And so most of the time they did what they were supposed to do. Here they must have had a few like extra interesting cartoons they identified, so they did much more than 60 minutes. Same thing here. I don't know what that was that they really wanted to watch for an extra hour. Then what happened was they were supposed to come back here around 6 months or so, but I think that there was I forget if it was COVID or the flu, but they got sick. And so they kind of stopped for a little bit, and they also missed their appointment, and they came back at 9 months. At that point, the acuity was now down to 20/30 in the amblyopic eye. They continued to do it a little bit longer, and at 10 months, they sort of self-stopped. I don't know exactly why, but they stopped at that point, and then they came in for their 12-month visit, and the vision had gotten to 20/25. So there was still a 1-line difference there, but we had started with a 3-line difference right on the left, and we could see that the acuity went from 20/50 down to 20/25 over that 12-month period. So Courtney's going to give the next example case.
Thank you.
Yep.
You just advance on the click.
Or the green button.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to present a 5-year-old girl who has some anisometropic amblyopia. So she came into my practice already diagnosed with anisometropic amblyopia. She was seen somewhere else at the age of 3, given glasses, and had just kind of been wearing glasses for the last year. When I first met her at the age of 4, she was 20/50 HOTV matching and 20/20 in the left eye. You can see, and I think one of the reasons I wanted to highlight this case is she had a pretty remarkable degree of anisometropia, specifically anisocylinder. So I thought that was an interesting kind of fact about her. She had a history of craniosynostosis, and for the most part was ortho and primary, but she did have a Y pattern XT going up to about 20 diopters, but it was only an up case. I did have preliminary stereo. She had about 4 9 circles, and it's kind of standard. My first line, usually in this age range, she was only 4 years old, and something we haven't talked about yet is the pupillary distance is important in prescribing this headset. They have to be big enough to actually qualify to get Luminopia. So she got 2 hours a day of prescribed patching. When she came back, she hadn't improved at all, so I increased my patching to a target of 4 hours a day. This family was really committed, and they actually did execute 4 hours a day of patching, and she came back. Really no improvement. I think at that point she was doing some Snellen acuity, so you had that kind of corresponding mild, what looks like decrease in vision. So I recommended Luminopia, and the parents were actually really excited about this. I think it took a little bit to kind of get in the groove, and you can see kind of around that 1 month, there was probably a spring break that I think coincided with that, and then they kind of got back in the groove, and just like we talked about, there's some days where they actually went above and beyond and did more than the prescribed 60 minutes of patching. And then we had a little bit of a hiccup, which I'll probably talk about in the discussion section, just at the time of the renewal of that month too. But then they really committed, and she went from 2060 at starting to 2-line improvement to 2040. And I think the cool thing about her is she actually went to 6 out of 9 circles the next time I saw her, so she did get some improvement in stereo. All right, Dr. Warner.
Hi, so I'm going to share with you a case of more severe amblyopia. My patient is 4 years old. I diagnosed him with accommodative esotropia at 2. It was late in his second year, almost 3 years old, and he had had an eye turn for 6 to 8 months prior to me seeing him. With hyperopic prescription, he was ortho in his glasses, but his vision was still really poor. We attempted patching, but for various reasons, patient cooperation, parents not dedicated to patching, it was a complete failure. Then we attempted atropine drops as well, and despite rigorous conversations in the office and the box clearly displaying which eye it should be put in, sometimes the parents would put it in the amblyopic eye, which was not helpful. Despite all of the poor initial therapy, he did improve from 2250 down to 2200 in his amblyopic eye. And then he kind of plateaued for like 6 to 8 months and nothing was improving. So at this point we discussed Luminopia, and I did prescribe it for 1 hour a day, 6 days a week. And this, I think, is impressive because it was the first treatment that he actually tolerated, and he didn't put up a fight about it because he could watch Nickelodeon for an hour every day. And so after 3 months of therapy, he broke through his plateau of 2200, and now he's down to 2150. And his stronger eye, non-amblyopic eye, has remained the same throughout the entire course of treatment.